3 predictors, 3 different times, and one was just 1 second out. I've been chasing a sub 3-hour marathon for years. I failed in Berlin 2021, probably due to poor training, and again in Berlin 2025 when it hit 27 degrees. So I wanted to give it one last go in Dresden back in October. And like pretty much every other runner I know, I was using a running watch and Strava to track my progress. Both of them had their own predictions and opinions on how well I'd do, but which one was better, Garmin, Strava, or my own prediction? Remember, one was out by only 1 second. How do they both work? Before I tell you the result, I need to tell you why they disagreed. It turns out that whilst they have pretty much exactly the same information, your daily runs, they're asking very different questions. It comes down to biology versus statistics. Let's start with Garmin. Their approach is basically physiological. It basically checks your engine size. As you run, your watch measures your heart rate relative to your pace and calculates your VO2 max, your body's maximum oxygen horsepower, if you will. Garmin then uses a formula to predict how this engine could perform on race day, given the perfect conditions. Strava takes a completely different approach. They use a big data statistical model. Strava doesn't care so much about your biology, they care more about your training log. Their machine learning looks at your training volume and intensity over the last 6 weeks and compares you to thousands of other runners in their massive database with similar habits. Strava is basically saying, look, people who trained exactly like you usually run this fast. So here is the key difference. Because Garmin looks at your theoretical engine size, it tends to be a little bit more optimistic. For the marathon, it assumes that your leg muscles will be able to keep up with your lung capacity over 26.2 miles, which isn't always the case. Because Strava looks at what your peers actually achieved, it tends to be a little bit more conservative and perhaps a bit more realistic about how long it will take you to cross the finishing line. As an aside, I'll be racing a half marathon this weekend with the video dropping next Friday. I'll put what Garmin and Strava think I can get on the screen here and drop me a comment below. Let me know which one you think I'm going to be able to achieve and be sure to subscribe so you can find out which one is right. What information do they both have? Well, they both pretty much have the same information. They both knew how far I'd run and how fast I'd run it. They both knew the conditions on the days that I run and that I'd incorporated strength training into my regime. Garmin doesn't say it includes this, but it does also have an estimate as to which exercises I did. I say estimates, I don't use the tracking feature, so it's just a best guess based on the movement of my wrist during a strength training session. Garmin did also have my sleep data, but that's not something they say they include in their race prediction calculations. What neither of them had was my heat training regime. You can buy sensors to track this, but I don't have one. Some Garmin devices do have an estimate of this, but that's based on the assumption that you are training in the heat and not doing what I was doing, which is wearing what some would consider excessive clothing for the temperature. So I had Garmin's optimistic opinion, Strava's realistic and conservative opinion, and of course my own prediction and the time I was setting out to try and achieve. Which one got within 1 second in Dresden? Well, I always believed I could get a sub 3. In fact, I started this channel with that one goal at the center of it. So my goal and prediction was to run a 2:59:59. Any seconds quicker than that, obviously I'd be ecstatic with, but I just wanted that sub 3. Strava was a little bit more pessimistic about my time, predicting me 3 hours, 1 minute and 7 seconds. That's 67 seconds slower, or 68 seconds slower than my predictions, which only averages out about 2 seconds per kilometer over the marathon distance. Garmin predicted 2 hours, 58 minutes and 48 seconds, so 2 seconds per kilometer faster than I was hoping to run. You can see how over a marathon, these tiny little margins of 1 or 2 seconds really start to build up. So what was the result? Well, I ran a 2 hour, 58 minutes and 47 second marathon. That's right, Garmin got it within 1 second. What does this mean for you? Honestly, probably not much. I genuinely set out to run a 2 hour, 59 minute and 59 seconds, and Dresden wasn't the perfect race. I ran the first half too quick and just managed to hold on to that buffer in the second half. Neither of the predictors took into account the conditions on the day, the course, and neither of them knew that I'd been heat training. All of this is to say, even a broken clock is right twice a day. I'm not saying race predictors are useless. They can be great indicators. If I'd have been perhaps going for 2:45 and I'd looked at those predictors, it might have given me pause for thought. But would I recommend people using them as their only guidance? Absolutely not. Don't let apps dictate your race, but just use them as a guide. If Garmin says you can do it, the fitness is probably there. You just need the right conditions on race day. Anyway, if you've made it this far, do drop me a like, and I'll see you all next week for the half marathon.